Hello, I'm going to be talking about the types of files you need for your GitHub repository. The two ones you need is a gitignore file and a git attribute file. Essentially what the attribute file is, it helps prevent against a Git LFS storage error. Essentially, Unity creates these files that are a bit too large for GitHub to just manage on its own. So you'll need to install Git LFS and add what is called a git attribute file to your folder that has the Git folder in it. What I can show you is an example of what this looks like when it's done. Here we have the .git folder, which is technically a hidden folder. If you want to view hidden folders, you go to View and you can check on hidden items here. But essentially when you see this hidden folder, it means that this folder on your local directory is able to send and receive from GitHub. Now, the other files that are here is a gitignore file and a git attribute file. If you open up either one of these with Notepad, they will turn into a .txt file, which will not work with GitHub. So don't try to open them here. What I'm going to show is how you can add these files properly onto your computer without opening them, and how you can update them specifically for Unity preferences. Now, what I'd like to show next is how to start up a repository on your computer, because you do need an empty one on your computer. You'll also need GitHub Desktop, which is what I'll primarily be using. You'll also want Git. Git is what you'll be using for the lines of code to get Git attribute on the specific folder that you want. You can get it for Windows, Mac, or Linux, and you're going to want to turn on the setting Add to Path, and that'll make things a lot easier. Now, starting up, let's go into GitHub online and make a repository. So I'm going to make a new one. I'm going to name it Unity Project Example. And here, this is where we can instantly get a quick ignore here. So specifically for gitignores, what they do is they ignore certain file types. Unity has some file types that are not necessary to transfer information or collaborate with others on some of these projects. So by selecting the gitignore specifically for Unity, you'll have that. But when this is created, you'll notice there's only a gitignore and there's not a git attribute. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this. I'm going to you can download it using the web URL, but in my case, I'm going to use GitHub Desktop, since that's a lot easier for a lot of people. And I'm going to select a local path here. Here I can go into here. I can make a new folder, example, GitHub. And here is where I'm going to have my local repository. I'm going to clone it onto my computer, and I'm going to trust it. Now we have it on my computer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up where I put it on my computer. I put it on my external drive and I named it example GitHub. And then I'm going to open it up once more until I see the .git folder. I'm going to right click an empty space. I'm going to open it with the git bash here. So here we go. We got git bash open. This is essentially what you downloaded before from Git. So this is git bash. Now, when I have this open, it's open specifically to my GitHub example, Unity project example. This is where it is. So I'm going to want a few lines of code that's run. Here's an example of what it looks like. You're going to want git LFS install. And now it says that it's initialized. And then I'm going to want to track any file type for right now, because then we're going to update the git attribute file to one for Unity. So I'm going to track a .psd, which is the file that's on the documentation for using this command. That's the only reason why I'm tracking it. We're going to get rid of it when we update this. So now that we're tracking this, I want to look back at my folder that has the example here. So now it added my git attribute folder or file. Remember, don't open it with Notepad. Don't double click and open it, because it's going to turn into a .txt and it won't work. Now I'm going to push this into the GitHub server. And that will allow me to edit it on the website using a Git attribute that's typical for Unity. So here's the one that I have. Because I added a .psd, that's basically everything that I added to it. I'm going to look up Git attribute for Unity. First one will do. And then I'm going to copy this. And this is essentially going to take certain textures that are in Unity or larger files that Git isn't really equipped to handle, and it's going to better handle them. I'm going to commit these changes. And finally, I'm going to pull those changes so that they're now on my local repository. Now they're on my computer. So what I can do is I can then add the files that I have on my local Unity project, and I can put them here. So here I have a project. It was called My Project. I think I renamed it. Here, I'll open a separate file. Unity projects, and then it was a example Unity project Git example. So I'm not going to drag and drop this folder in here. I'm going to be dragging all of these folders in there. This is so that the Git attribute and the gitignore can access the necessary files better. So here we have everything in there, and then I'm going to push this. And this is going to take into consideration the ignore and the attribute. And that's going to be it. That is going to be how you can handle LFS errors and how you can get a Git attribute and a gitignore specifically for Unity. Thanks for watching.